All right, so do you want to know what's the best part of having an assistant engineer? He comes in, sets everything up, and you don't have to do any of the work. Welcome back to another video on Audio Geek, and in today's session, we're gonna be doing some vocals. But how do you actually prepare for a proper vocal session? It's not as simple as just placing a microphone in front of a singer and hitting that record button. You have to think about what microphone you're gonna use, where you're gonna place the microphone, where you're gonna place the singer, what preamp am I gonna use. All these little details can completely change the vocal sound. Let's see how you can actually prepare for a proper vocal session. Whoa! Before you can start thinking about these guys out here, you need to think about what your song actually needs. So let's say you're doing metal or maybe pop, rap, Gregorian chant. All of these different styles have different needs for voices. And the best thing you can do if you don't have access to a studio like I do, go and listen to some reference tracks, do a little research on what techniques they used, try and find out what gear they used, so that maybe when you come into the studio, you have a good idea on what to try out first. We all know that time in the studio is money, so make sure to have in mind what you want to try out. And also make sure to pick a place that's going to give you a palette of gear that you can try out and find the best vocal sound that will really work for your project. So let's go to the fun part and talk about gear. Okay, so now you're in the studio and you actually have to pick the microphones that you're gonna use. If you did your research, like I told you to, you should already have some picks that you can try out once you get into the studio. But let's say you didn't do the research and you come out a little clueless. What are some general pointers that can help you get started to maybe try and craft something completely unique? There are three main categories of microphones that I try out for vocals. Those are large diaphragm condensers, broadcast dynamic microphones, and ribbon microphones. So let's start with the first one. Something like what comes in this box. The microphone is actually right there. You guys can't see it, but it's here. This guy here, a Neumann U87. Pretty much a staple of vocal recordings. Neumann U87s aren't the only tool in the box. You should spend some time trying out different large diaphragm condensers because there's just so many of them out there and they all sound different. But there's one really good reason why they work really well for vocals, and that is the detail that comes out of large diaphragm condensers. They have a really fast transient response, which means they're gonna sound really detailed and they're gonna capture every nuance of the voice. Definitely give them a shot, and that would be the first option I would try. Category number 2, broadcast dynamic microphones. There aren't a whole lot of options, but there's two that I would definitely try out. The SM7 from Shure and the Electro Voice RE20. If you're doing something like maybe rap or metal or something that has screaming in it that you need some really powerful sounding voices, well, definitely give one of these microphones a shot because these microphones can tolerate a lot of sound pressure going straight into the capsule, which is something you can't really do with condenser microphones because they have a fast transient response and before you know it, they will clip and you're gonna regret it later. If you need to record powerful vocals, try broadcast dynamic microphones out. So the last category, which is actually one of my favorites, ribbon microphones like the guy that comes into this little baggie here, a Royer R121, which is actually sitting right next to the camera right now. Ribbon microphones work really well if you're trying to make something sound natural or maybe you're going for that more vintage kind of sound. They can sound really delicate and they can also give you that same detail that you expect from large diaphragm condensers. The big difference about ribbon microphones and condenser microphones is that ribbons are actually dynamic microphones, which means they will have a lower gain even though they have a fast transient response. Let's say you're doing something a little bit more organic, then start with a ribbon microphone. That's gonna save you a lot of time because, trust me, it's gonna work. Try the ribbon. Okay, so you've picked your microphone. Where do you place the microphone now? Well, maybe this is set up right. The microphone is about the height of my mouth. I have a pop filter, so everything's fine, right? Not actually, because you don't want to actually record what comes out of the mouth because the voice actually resonates inside the cranial cavity. If you want to extract the best tone out of your voice, put the microphone a little further away, maybe at eye level. So let's fix that. Okay, preamps. The main thing about preamps is they can really change the sound of the microphone you're using. A good starting point is to use a preamp that has selectable input impedance because it can help you get the best out of each microphone that you're using. Something like maybe the ISA line of preamps, they have selectable input impedances, which can really help if you're using something like a ribbon microphone that is really sensitive to the input impedance, or maybe like this LA610, which also has selectable input impedance. The next thing to think about is what kind of control do you need on your preamp? Do you need the EQ? Do you need compressors? Then you definitely are going to need a channel strip. You could always insert EQs and compressors after any preamp you're using. You could, for instance, use the preamp section of the ISA 828 here with the compressor of the LA610 and then the EQ of the Avalon. There's also some really cool preamps to watch out for, something like the Alpha VHD, which lets you get different distortion characteristics. Here's the main thing: make sure to try different combinations. The last thing to think about is, where are we going to record the singer? For the most part, you will want to use the driest sounding room in the studio, but there are times where you will want a little reverb. Whenever you need to do something a little bit more realistic or something that needs to sound a little bit more lively, try and record in the live room. Definitely experiment with that, even for pop, because that can just help you get that little extra magic that maybe your recording is missing. The next thing to do is to make sure that your singer is prepared to come in and record. They should be well rested. They shouldn't have used their voice too much. They should be well hydrated. So make sure that you have a bottle of water for them. Make sure they're comfortable. Make sure that the lighting is good, that the sound is good, and that they're having fun, just having a good time. If they're feeling comfortable about the recording, that's when you're gonna get the best results. Now, if they're stressed out or pissed off, well, that's not gonna work too well. They're probably gonna go out of tune and then they'll get frustrated. So if you want the best recordings, make sure they're feeling comfortable. So just to recap, number one, make sure that you know what the song needs. Number two, go and pick out the gear that will get you what the song needs. Number three, find the best spot to record in the studio. And finally, make sure that your singer is prepared. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, go down there and comment. Stay tuned for more videos. There's more coming. I got my own vocal session to tend to. So I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.